So we're going to begin with the transition step, moving your receiver to the supine position so that you can work on the front of their body. And we want to do that in a way that your receiver will maintain their privacy and the warmth from the sheet. So we have our magic sheet trick. 3 steps for the magic sheet trick. First, you want to stabilize the top sheet on the ground. When you're working on the ground, you can kneel right on the sheet on top. That's the first step. You need to stabilize and sort of situate yourself just in the mid-torso area. The second step is to create a tent that is tall enough for the person to roll underneath, but you want the sheet to be able to still maintain contact with the floor so that you won't be losing warmth and they won't be losing any privacy as they turn over. So I have the sheet in a tent position. I ask my receiver to turn their face towards me and just to keep turning. And my receiver is turning over, and then when they turn over, I just let the sheet down, and there the magic sheet trick has been successful. Now that they are face up, I have to change 2 parts, and the first thing is the headrest. So I'm going to take the towel that's under my person's head and create the perfect headrest, and that is using my basic sized bath towel. I roll up one side, that's going to create the cervical support, and then I can use the other side to create a little bit of leverage, and I'm just going to guesstimate how high this is going to be and move it underneath his head. Needs to be a little bit higher, so I'm going to adjust it some, and still needs to be a little bit higher, so I'm going to add a little bit of support underneath, because I want the forehead to be a little bit higher. Okay, and then with the support that was at one time under their ankle, I'll take that, and hopefully you can do it on your own, but if not, just ask them to bend their knees, and you place the support up between the knees and the thighs, and then you allow them to have just a little bit more leverage so that the lower back perhaps can feel more relaxed. Now that they're facing up, the last thing you want to do is be aware that their visual is now exposed to the stimuli of bright lights, and we want to do everything we can to help support the relaxation process. So you could take your towel, or if you have an eye pillow, place that on their eyes, and you could also use a washcloth. It's obviously more important to do this if you have lighting in the room that's not relaxing or not conducive to relaxation. So here you are, and now I think your receiver is ready to receive. And remember, when they turn into the supine position, they may also feel a little cooler than when being face down, so you'll have an extra blanket with you just in case they need that at this time, and you'll ask them about how they're feeling in terms of temperature wise. We're beginning the front of the legs routine, the anterior legs. We're doing this as it would be done if you're working at home on the floor. So you'll find this particular routine, I hope, even easier to do from the floor position than when you're working on a massage table. We'll begin by doing our first step, and you'll only do this once at the beginning of working on the front of the legs, taking hold of both sets of toes with both of your hands, squeezing them, and then just leaning forward with your torso weight, leaning forward so that the toes are bending backwards, that is, bending towards their head, allowing them an opening, stretching open, and just leaning forward so that your energy is mostly spent in grasping onto these toes, all of them if you can, from the big to the little toe, squeezing them, giving them a long stretch, leaning forward, and then just releasing. And then we'll begin by creating the appropriate drape for working on the front of the legs. And so you'll want to wrap your towel, or I should say the sheet, tightly around their shorts, and then taking the sheet and tucking it under either the opposite leg, the leg that you're not working on, or you could also wrap it underneath the leg you are working on. That is up to you. And you'll bring yourself back to where you started. I'm using coconut oil in a little container, so you can just take a little bit and it'll warm in your hands. Going to begin from the top of the foot and just sliding up as far as it's comfortable. You'll find you can move further up when you are working on the floor like this, leaning forward as further up the leg as opposed to when you're working on the table. So there's another benefit. Giving an effleurage to the front of the leg and the front of the top of the foot, distributing some form of lubricant, and then placing your fingers underneath the foot, the ball of the foot, taking your thumbs and beginning to create movements with your thumbs from the base of the toes just as far as the thumbs can move without you moving the fingers underneath. This can be light, quick movements, not a lot of pressure. You can spend a longer amount of time doing that, particularly if you're just wanting to focus on the foot area. Another alternative would be to take your thumbs and move perhaps more slowly in between the tendons. Still, the movement is away from yourself, but in between the tendons. And you will be able to tell when you would want to choose the latter movement as opposed to doing the quick total thumb movements. Sometimes with a large foot you can see the tendons very easily, and you could choose to use that step. The second step involves you sliding your thumbs in between the two bony ankles on each side of the foot. You glue your thumbs there. Those don't change their position. Take your fingers and circle the malleoli around, giving enough pressure so you can feel the shape of the bony structures, and moving your fingers to each side of the Achilles tendon as you go around the bones, both directions, and then you slide into the next step seamlessly, giving pressure with your fingers and thumb, one hand following the other, noticing that the pressure you give to the inside of the leg may be different than to the outside of the leg. You may feel that you can sink in more on the inside of the leg. Check in with your receiver. Do they want more pressure on the outside of the leg? Is the pressure on the inside of the leg too much? Can there be a tendency towards feeling more tender in that area? And then you just move your body, still keeping that same rhythm, and begin to do some kneading to this area. Now this is different than when we knead it on the calf, because there's a big tibia bone right in the center. So depending on how your receiver's leg is turned out, you may decide just to knead on the inside of the leg here, the calf muscle on the inside, medial aspect of the calf muscle, squeezing and lifting that area. Or you may use your thumb on one side and work in that way. Moving up towards the next part, notice that you're working with the knee. Taking your hands like this, gluing your hands around the kneecap, the patella, gluing your hands down. Fingers are on the inside of the leg, giving pressure and then squeezing with your thumb on one side and fingers on the other, and then moving back again, just going back and forth. So you're coming to a pinch, but it doesn't hurt your person. You have all that stretched tissue around the kneecap. And letting your fingers slide as far as they'll slide to the inside of the knee area and the outside where your thumbs are, going back and forth. Then you slide up to the next area. You do some effleurage. Keep all your contact on the inside of the thigh firm so that you're not tickling them along the inside there. Okay. And then we're going to create the setup to do the next 3 steps for the inside of the leg. I should say for the thigh area. Take the hand that's closest to their head, place it under the knee. The other hand you place just below the kneecap firmly, and just lift up with your hand that's below the knee. Keep your hands supporting around the leg so they never have to worry about holding their leg up. Take the sheet, place it on top of the foot. You want to protect the top of the foot because your bottom, and you might be wearing jeans, is going to be sitting right on top of the foot. And this will help stabilize the foot. And when you sit right on top of the foot, ideally your torso is right in front of the leg, which allows you to use your body weight for this next step. Interlace your hands. This is your tool, interlaced hands. You notice if you press your palms together, you're going to be able to use a variety of techniques in this area. First, we're going to slide down towards the hip, and then we're going to lean back and move back down again. Here we're giving pressure to the muscles that are along the top of the leg and the quadriceps. And then we lean back and we're using our weight and we're giving a traction as we lean back. So you may provide a type of a skeletal traction. So your receiver, depending on where you provide this traction, leaning back, they'll have a little bit of a perhaps opening from their pelvic bone to their back. So you can experiment with that. The next part we're going to do is to move from side to side, a cross fiber stroke. So the pressure that you give with your palms will determine what kind of depth you're going to have here. You could use part of your forearm here, going back from side to side, and then all the way up to the knee, and then you could alternate. And then the last step we'll do while we're in this position is some deportment. So you can use the loose fist version. You can use both hands. Remember, deportment is the quick successive movements. And you can also use fingers quickly. If you're finding the leg doesn't stay up well enough, you could decide just to use one hand. And then the other hand. But you could practice stabilizing the leg, finding the right spot for it to have the greatest balance. Maybe you're going to move the foot out to the lateral side, maybe you're going to bring the foot closer towards the hip, so till it may be able to balance on its own, and that would be your ideal. We finish up with a little bit of deportment on the calf area, taking advantage of the availability to do this in this position. So we're putting a little bonus work in for the calf, one more bit of contact. We finish up with one movement down all the way up to the knee, keeping your hands around the knee, and then moving yourself to the side. You want to use the least amount of effort for yourself, so just lift up and let your receiver's leg weight bring itself down on its own. You don't have to help it more than just providing a support. And taking both of your hands, giving a final effleurage. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And then wrapping that leg, tucking around the foot, and you could do one more motion through. And there you have that leg done. And you move to the next leg.